Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we're heading deep into one of the most fascinating and wild places in America, the Florida Everglades. This incredible ecosystem is a vast network of slow-moving water, sawgrass marshes, and unique wildlife from alligators to wading birds. It's truly unlike anywhere else in the world. Joining us for this adventure is Justin Tucker from the North Carolina Outward Bound School. Justin currently serves as advancement coordinator, but his roots run deep in the field. He's led countless expeditions in the North Carolina mountains and the Everglades. His story is inspiring. A city kid who discovered the outdoors, fell in love with it, and even thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail before finding his calling with Outward Bound. In this episode, we'll hear Justin's journey and explore what it's like to guide students through an Outward Bound course in the Everglades. This is a first for Inspire Campfire, and I can't wait to dive into the beauty, challenges, and lessons of one of America's most unique national parks. So grab your gear and join us around the campfire as we discover Justin's connection to the wild and the Everglades. Justin, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you, Scott. I'm excited to be here.
Man, I'm so excited. We've had some great conversations leading up to this, and I'm really excited to share with the listeners. The Everglades is someplace that I've not been, and I'm very, very intrigued by it. You know, my experience has always been in the woods and backpacking in the mountains, but there's something really cool about the Everglades that I'm excited to hear. But so before we even go there, you know, in the intro, I introduced you as a guide and working for the North Carolina Outward Bound School. And there may be some listeners that aren't familiar with Outward Bound. So I wonder if we could start there. Could you kind of just give us a quick overview of Outward Bound and what it means to be an Outward Bound instructor?
Yeah, of course. Well, Outward Bound is a school, first and foremost. We focus on wilderness experiential education. And for those who may not know what that is or what that means, we pretty much take our students on backpacking trips. So they could be anywhere from 5 days to 70 days if you're taking a semester-long course. And we also incorporate rock climbing and whitewater paddling into these trips. So we're sort of combining the technical aspect of teaching our students how to do these activities like backpacking and rock climbing. And at the same time, we also incorporate like practical life skills like leadership, how to make decisions, how to work with a team. So it's a pretty unique experience.
Yeah. And so who are the typical participants in an Outward Bound course?
We primarily serve students from the later middle school to high school age. I believe our youngest students are about 14 years old, and we serve folks all the way up into adulthood. We work with veterans, nurses, educators. Sometimes we get professional groups who want to do an Outward Bound course just for team building and team bonding. So a wide variety of people.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I kind of like to emphasize, being a 50-year-old adult, right? That Outward Bound, I think, is not just for kids, right? There are adult courses as well.
Right. And I also want to emphasize that Outward Bound is not necessarily for troubled youth. So I hear that all the time where I say I work for Outward Bound and people sort of associate it with the wilderness therapy industry. Yes. And I just want to say they are two different things where we do not focus on troubled youth. We focus on all youth as well as anyone who is interested in a different type of expedition.
Yeah, I love that. So one other question, like what is the difference between like an Outward Bound course and just going on like a guided backpacking trip?
Some differences are you might not know who you're going to be with on an Outward Bound course, whereas if you're planning your own trip with your own group of friends, you all already have some sort of relationship that you've built previously. But many times on an Outward Bound course, you are meeting your crewmates when you arrive at the airport in Asheville. And so you have to work on building those bonds rather quickly while diving right into the experience of the course itself. So that's a bit unique. And we also sort of use some what I would call traditional methods, such as we sleep under tarps when we camp instead of tents.
Yeah.
So there may be a little bit of an adjustment period if you've never camped before, or if you're used to zipping yourself into a tent at night. On our courses, we are under tarps and a little bit more exposed. Some other differences, we carry all of our like cooking gear, which are larger pots and pans, with us, and those items are dispersed amongst the crew, so no one person is carrying everything. And there's just a lot of teamwork and shared responsibility.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I mean, I would say too, like just from my perspective, Outward Bound is teaching skills and leadership and, personal qualities that help us to become better people. And it's not, and for kids, of course, it's something they can carry into adulthood. But, even for us adults, like these are skills that help us build confidence and competence and, just the ability to just be better and prove to ourselves like how much we can actually accomplish in the world versus just going on an experience where, somebody's guiding you along and making food for you and telling you where to sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah, an amazing experience. So before we get into the Everglades, a little bit about you and how you came to the adventure world. And I guess ultimately we'll get to how you came to Outward Bound, but how did you find adventure?
I came into outdoor adventure in adulthood in the latter half of my 20s. Prior to that, I did not really venture into the outdoors much outside of playing, the typical sports that a lot of kids play growing up, like basketball, baseball, football. And those are in very controlled settings on a field, maybe in a school or something like that.
Yeah.
But to make a long story short, I moved to New York City after college to pursue a career in the fashion industry. So I was in the fashion industry for a good 5 years.
Amazing. Yeah. You're in the city, like doing city life.
Yeah, I was doing city life until I decided that I was pretty much done with city life. And, while I was working and figuring out my career, I had some experiences that were a bit challenging. One specifically was losing a close friend of mine who I worked with in the fashion industry. And that sort of caught me off guard, and it sort of reset something in my brain. And I started thinking, as much as I love and appreciate this industry, I feel like there are other things out there and other things that are maybe a little more important. And that drove me to experience my first hike on my own in New York City, or taking the train just upstate to find a trail in a local park. And that kind of is what started it. After that first hike, I did not stop.
So can I like sort of zoom in on that, I guess, a little bit? And so you're living in New York City and you get this sort of calling to go on a hike somewhere. So first of all, New York City is one of the biggest cities in the world. Where do you go on a hike when you live in New York City?
Well, if you're not afraid of venturing a little bit deeper into some of the boroughs like Queens and the Bronx, you start to leave a little bit of the concrete jungle behind, and you start to see more parks and forested areas. So my first hike was in the Bronx. I can't remember the name of the park now, but it was maybe an hour and a half train ride.
Nice.
And from there, I learned that you could take the Metro North and the New Jersey Transit across state lines or up into the lower Hudson Valley area. And in a few instances, the train or the bus will drop you off literally at a trailhead. And so you can just get off and start hiking from there. And once I found that out, it turned into an every weekend deal of sort of escaping the city for a few hours and just going up on a hike.
Yeah. So you mentioned like the loss of your friend, and I'm just kind of envisioning sort of maybe needing this reset. Like I just need to kind of get away and kind of reset my brain. This is what I'm feeling. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I was going through a really rough time after that experience. And, I moved to New York by myself, so I didn't really have family. And I had some friends who I had met over the years while living there, but there was no one who I could really lean on in that instance. And I needed to find something that would help pull me out of the depression that I was falling into. And it just happened to be exploring outside.
So we're going to talk about the Everglades, but your story is a story of the wilderness healing yet another human. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, I love that. I just love it. So what happened like on those first few hikes, like in your brain? Like you obviously felt something. You started going every weekend.
Yeah, it was nice to just not hear the sounds and the sirens and to get away from the constant smell of trash and to see trees and breathe air and feel the wind. And the more that I started doing this every weekend, I started to realize that, oh, I don't have to do just 1 or 2 miles. I could do more like 5 or 6 miles. And then it turned to 7 or 8 miles. And it became harder and harder to bring other friends out with me because I just wanted to do a little bit more every time.
Yeah, totally. They didn't want to go that far.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right.
So then 5 and 6 miles turns into 2,000 something.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Funny enough, on one of those day hikes in the lower Hudson Valley in New York, I happened to meet these 2 guys. And this was the middle of the summertime. They were hiking without shirts on and they had these huge backpacks on. And I had no idea what they were doing, but one of them was Black. So I stopped to talk to him. And he was explaining to me that he was through hiking the Appalachian Trail. I had no idea what the AT was at this time. I had no idea what a through hike was or that this was something that people could take 6 months to do.
Were you on the AT at that point and not realize it?
I was, yeah. And I didn't realize it.
In New York, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And these 2 guys, they started explaining to me and my friend who was with me a little bit about their experience. Funny enough, they were from New York City and they had quit their jobs several months prior and they flew down to Georgia and started through hiking. And so I was sort of meeting them as they were passing through New York again, which was crazy. But after having that conversation with them, the spark kind of went off in my brain where I was like, okay, these are 2 guys. And they seem pretty normal and they just decided to go do this thing. And I think I'm pretty normal, but I also think that I could go do this thing.
Yeah.
So I sort of tucked that idea in the back of my brain. And I said, maybe one day, if I can save up the money and quit my job for 6 months, then I can go do something like that. And it ended up becoming a reality a few years later.
So how can you walk us through that? How did it go from that meeting with those guys on the trail, that spark that you mentioned? Like, do you remember like making the decision, I'm doing this?
This is going to sound weird, but I have to credit the pandemic for making that possible.
Not weird. A lot of people in your boat. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of was forced to press the reset button on my life during that time. I got laid off from my job in the city. So I decided to ultimately leave the city. So I went back to Baltimore, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
Moved back home with my parents. So they weren't making me pay rent. So I quickly found another job. So I was making money again, receiving those stimulus checks that people were getting and just throwing them into savings. And I had this thought, if I want to hike the AT, this is probably my best chance to do it. So let me play this smart. So I stayed in my parents' house for a couple of years, saved up as much as I could, and made the plan to do it in 2022. And that was sort of the first year where it kind of felt like we were coming into the other side of the pandemic. So it was more acceptable to go out and do things again. So that's when I decided to go.
I love it so much. So it was a 2-year plan, really. I mean, you met those guys and that you kind of decided then, and then it was really just about making it happen.
I met those guys in 2018. So I held on to the idea for four good years.
Yeah. The way you told the story, I'm assuming like this was a passing conversation and you've never seen those guys again.
Yeah, it was a pretty brief conversation. We talked to them for maybe 10 minutes and then we continued on our hike.
So let me ask you this. It was kind of a fun question. Like if you had the opportunity to meet those guys again someday, like is there anything you would say to them? Because I'm just thinking about how like you just don't ever know who you're going to meet on the trail and who you might inspire.
Yeah.
But those guys did something to you that day.
I would just want to let them know that, hey, you probably don't remember this brief conversation we had several years ago, but from that conversation, I also planned and executed my own AT through hike. So now we're all sort of in the same club.
You know, just to be like clear here, like we could spend an entire episode on the Appalachian Trail, like such an amazing adventure. And I'd love to have some more conversation with you about that. That would be a 3-hour conversation, I think. So you did the Appalachian Trail, and then obviously that kind of gave you the experience to sort of like do what comes next. And so can you sort of fast forward to how your journey on the Appalachian Trail led you to Outward Bound?
On the latter part of my through hike, I started thinking about, what am I going to do after this? And I knew that the idea of going back to my parents' house and getting a 9-to-5 office job again, it just did not sound appealing. And I had just gone through this major transition where my life became about the outdoors, and I just wanted to hold on to that. So after my through hike, I got back to my parents' house and I started looking for jobs. And I was specifically looking in the outdoor industry. I thought I might want to be a guide and eventually start my own like backpacking guiding business. And so an opportunity appeared on LinkedIn with the North Carolina Outward Bound School. And it was for the BIPOC Fellowship Program. For those who don't know, BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. So this is a program that Outward Bound in North Carolina started maybe 3 years ago now.
Okay.
Where they bring in folks from historically underrepresented communities to come in and work as field instructors. So they provide trainings for us. They put us in a wilderness first responder course. And not only did they pay for the course, but they also paid us as paid work days while we were taking the course. And those woofer courses cost anywhere from $800 plus. So there was no way I was ever going to be able to afford that for myself.
All the time. It's a 10-day course.
Yeah. That's really what brought me to North Carolina Outward Bound. I saw that opportunity. I applied for it. I excelled in my interviews. And before you know it, I was packing up my car and driving down to the Western North Carolina area.
It's amazing. And I'm assuming that they're probably mesmerized by your experience and, you know, kind of made it a no-brainer for both of you guys, like a real win-win.
It's always helpful to know that someone has some experience in the outdoors. It doesn't have to be a lot, but if you're great working with people and also able to be comfortable in some uncomfortable situations, then this could be a great opportunity for you. And it was for me.
It's amazing. Okay. So before we step into Outward Bound and all of that, a couple of things. I want to just ask you just like maybe one highlight from the Appalachian Trail, and then like any sort of like major life lesson or thing that you learned about yourself in that 6-month experience, kind of what your biggest takeaway was from that experience.
It's funny because this was not a highlight while I was in the thick of the through hike, but hiking through the presidential range up in the Whites in New Hampshire. At the time, I was miserable because I was so exhausted. But looking back on it, the presidential range is so beautiful. I want to go back and backpack that section again just to see it all again because it is so incredible. So that is a highlight in hindsight. But in the moment, I was like, when can we stop hiking up all these mountains? Because I'm tired.
It was struggle and it was beautiful all at the same time.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of like, what's the biggest thing that you learned about yourself in your AT experience?
I think this was something that I sort of already knew, but this experience sort of reaffirmed it for me. And it was literally that I can do literally whatever I want.
Yeah.
If I set out to do something, and I learned this from moving to New York City by myself with maybe $1,000 in my pocket, and I made it work. And I lived there for several years. And then when the pandemic started and my life changed, I decided I was going to go through hike. And so I put the plan together, put all the pieces together, and then I went out and did that. So it's like I can do whatever I want.
I love that. I love it. And I think that that's exactly what the North Carolina Outward Bound School does for people.
Yeah.
Is it helps build that confidence that you can do things that you didn't think you could do.
Yeah. Builds confidence and unlocks potential.
So obviously we're an adventure podcast. I love the outdoors. I love nature, but I do I have to say, I do love New York City. It's such a great place. But I understand. But I understand. And I think one thing that I heard you say that it kind of caught me, and I just wrote it down. But you said my life became about the outdoors.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything behind that? Like that to me, that sounds like a transition. Like my life became about the outdoors. Like, what was it?
It was just a feeling that whenever I go outside on any sort of adventure, big or small, it feels like so many things that I think about or maybe anxious about or worried about on a day-to-day basis, you can sort of put all of that away for a moment or many moments if you're going on a long expedition like what I did. But it just feels like, the outdoors and nature, it accepts all of us as we are, however we show up on any given day. It doesn't really ask anything from us, but it still provides all that we need to exist on this planet. As a people, we probably should be doing a better job of taking care of it, but for the time being, we have to appreciate all that it offers to us.
Very well said. I appreciate that perspective. So, okay. So you step into Outward Bound and you're going to be a guide. And so now fast forward, you have guided and been an instructor on Outward Bound courses, both in the North Carolina mountains and the Everglades. Super excited to talk to you specifically about the Everglades, just because I've spent a good amount of time in the North Carolina mountains. We've had some people on the show that have spoken about the North Carolina mountains, but we've never had anybody on to talk about the Everglades. And I want to go there. It just sounds like it's a national park that's very, very intriguing to me. Yeah. And I want to just go right into what I'm not sure if they're myths or if they're real but when I think Everglades, I think these pythons that are now there and alligators. I'm like, these serpents are scary. Like, tell me what goes on in the Everglades, and am I going to encounter a python and an alligator?
You very well may encounter one or both of those. In my experience, I spent one full winter season in the Everglades. So that's mid-December through mid-March season. What I encountered were a few gators. Yeah. Honestly, I didn't see too many unless you are a little bit further inland. So driving from our base camp to any of the other major cities like Naples or Miami, you would drive past some areas that do house some gators. Mm-hmm. I can't say for sure if I saw a python. There was one night where I was going up into my dorm and there was a snake on the stairs leading up to where I was staying, and it was a baby. It looked like a python, so we took care of it, but I never knew for sure. And actually, we have staff down in the Everglades now starting the season for this year. And they sent a photo of a huge python, at least 5 feet long, that they found on base, I'm assuming, and they took care of it.
Nice. Okay. All right. But I'm not hearing any 12-inch thick, 30-foot long.
I'm not going to say that you won't run into any of those, but I did not, thankfully, because I didn't want to.
I love it. No, but in seriousness, though, I do want to hear, can you kind of talk through what people are going to experience in the Everglades in terms of the landscape, the geography, flora, fauna?
I'll say the Everglades is one of the most unique ecosystems in the world, let alone the United States. And being in that sort of environment, the way that Outward Bound operates in that environment, it puts you right in the middle of it all. So you imagine sitting in a canoe, paddling either in Everglades National Park or within the 10,000 Islands National Seashore, which is basically just a series of islands that are so beautiful. You may be paddling along the coast, or you could be paddling through some mangrove tunnels, which is, again, an incredible and unique experience. There's plenty of wildlife, so different types of species of birds that I had never seen before, different types of bugs, some less pleasant than others. There's a big mosquito and no-see-um population in that area. So even though it's a little bit warmer in Florida in the wintertime, we were still wearing long sleeves to try to prevent bug bites and things like that. But it's incredible, like camping on beaches. Sometimes we slept on top of our canoes, on boards, seeing dolphins, manatees, manta rays jumping up out of the ocean. Like, I still think about it. It's been a couple of years since I've been down there, but I still have fond memories.
I think you said you were there for a winter season. So was it with multiple crews, or is this like a semester long?
No, I worked multiple courses with multiple crews.
Okay, so you got to see a variety of different students come through. So
Right.
What's different about guiding an outward bound course in the Everglades versus like the North Carolina mountains?
In my experience, the Everglades felt a little more lax as an instructor. And by no means is it lax, because we're always thinking about the safety of our students and ourselves.
For sure.
But in North Carolina, it feels like once we set a route and a plan for our course, like we have to execute that plan, and we have to execute that route and make it to our campsites. If it's at 5 p.m. in the evening, or if it's at midnight that night, it feels like you have to get to your next campsite for safety reasons, so that folks back at base know where you are, rather than carrying all of your gear on your backs in heavy backpacks. We get to put all of our gear in the canoes. So that feels much nicer on the body. And it's nice to sleep under the stars, like on a beach or on top of the canoe, and have just the clearest view of the skies, where sometimes in the mountains there may be so much tree cover that you're just looking at the tops of trees. So yeah, there are a lot of stark differences. Some of the food is a little different that we eat on course. I prefer the food in the Everglades, but
Tell me about that.
so we keep our food in the Everglades stored in buckets, as opposed to like packing them in our packs.
Right.
So that allows us to carry more things, like more canned items, cooking on stoves, which were more like actual stoves as opposed to setting up the trangias like we do here in the mountains. So it's a much easier process for cooking.
Because you have the canoes, you're not carrying everything on your back. You have the ability to bring more stuff.
Yeah. And there are a little more luxuries with that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So are you paddling pretty much the whole time?
Pretty much every day, similar to in the mountains. We have a new destination that we're trying to reach. Some days, depending on how the course is going or how long it is, you may spend a couple of days just camped out on one island. And so we'll facilitate activities and lessons on that island for that day. So that could be nice for students who can be a little tired from learning how to paddle against the tides.
Are we portaging canoes at all, or are we paddling the whole time? Are we carrying our canoes?
Really, we're only carrying them when we like get to a destination. Like we got to put them in the water, take them out of the water. That's basically it. Got it.
Yeah. Oh man, so awesome. So what are some of the highlights that you recall from your time in the Everglades, whether it's an experience or moments or?
There was one course specifically that I think I will always remember. Actually, the New York Outward Bound School sent a couple groups of students down to the Everglades for a course. And this course fell between Christmas and New Year's. Cool. And a lot of the students that we had, this was their first time sort of being away from their families over the holidays. And a lot of them were very sad and very homesick about that. So myself and my co-instructor, we spent literally the entire course just trying to cheer them up and keep them going. And New Year's Eve, we made it to one of the best campsites we could have had that evening. And we packed out some hot dogs and s'mores.
Nice.
So we had a really nice feast on the beach on New Year's Eve. And I think they really enjoyed that. And at that point, I think most of them had finally gotten over the hump of being so homesick. So I will always remember that. That was so nice.
Oh, that's so nice. I am envisioning kind of camping. Like camping on a beach is so different than the experience of camping in the woods. I'm imagining that given, I understand that it's wintertime, but given that it's Florida, southern Florida, right? So the weather is pretty mild, yes?
Yeah, it's mostly mild. It could get a little chilly in the evenings. And the season that I was there, we saw a bit more rain than I think Florida is used to during the winter, which is supposed to be their dry season. So that can be a bit unpleasant. But again, we find ways to become comfortable when we're uncomfortable.
Getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's like keyword right there.
Yeah, if you can do that,
Yeah.
any outward bound course will be a breeze.
I love that. I so want to go to the Everglades. So are there outward bound experiences for adults in the Everglades?
Yes, of course. We do
Nice.
canoeing courses that are multi-day as well as sea kayaking courses.
Nice.
I was mostly on the canoe expedition side.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna get my way to the Everglades. I can't wait. I want to talk to a little bit about your experience as an instructor.
Mhm.
So we have had several people on this podcast that have participated in outward bound courses, and we've even had some folks come on that that have talked about the Unity project that we do here in Charlotte, which is an amazing experience. We've had some Unity participants come on, and Alexis, who is in charge of the Unity project, has come on here and talked to us a little bit, but we've never had a outward bound instructor. So I love hearing your perspective. What is your like kind of official role as an instructor on an outward bound course?
Your official role is to facilitate the experience of being on course. So you're moving students through the different elements of a course. So it could be backpacking with a couple days of rock climbing or backpacking with a couple days of whitewater paddling. At the top of your priority list as an instructor is safety. Mm-hmm. So the entire time from the minute you pick your students up from the airport to the minute you are putting them back on the van to go back to the airport, you are keeping safety in mind. Instructors are very regularly checking in with each other to see how the crew is doing, who might be struggling with different things, who is excelling. So we are always focusing on safety, and I cannot emphasize that enough.
Y'all do such a good job with that piece. I mean, I think you've got that dialed in, been doing it for a long time. So the cool thing, like outward bound is about sort of teaching people. There's the experience, but then there's like the skills that come along with it. And I think like so much of what people get out of it is realizing that they're able to do more than they thought that they could. And that involves like, you have to go through the struggle to realize that. So I'm like really curious from an instructor standpoint, like how you balance like, this acknowledgement that you kind of have to let people struggle a little bit in order to have the full experience. But at the same time, you still want to keep them safe and, you want them to know that you're there to help them. I'm just curious, like how you kind of manage and balance that.
Right. At the beginning of a course, instructors are very hands-on with students. So we're teaching our students how to complete all of the day-to-day tasks, like in the morning, breaking down camp, cooking breakfast. These are the processes. These are the roles and responsibilities that each of you will have. And we do that for every process throughout the day. We have instruction on backpacking as a group, instruction on setting up and breaking down camp, instruction for working in the kitchen, fixing meals. So initially, we don't expect many of our students to like know how to do a lot of this stuff or know how to do it the way that we do it with North Carolina Outward Bound. So we're very hands-on in the beginning. Students can ask pretty much any question they want, and as instructors, we try to do our best to give them as much information as possible. And as the course progresses, the instructors will slowly sort of take a step back and will hand over more and more responsibility to our students. So in the morning, when it's time to get up and break down camp, instructors might not be giving out every single direction. We may sit back and wait to see, can the students pick things up themselves and start breaking down camp and get started on breakfast. So throughout the entirety of the course, we're slowly, hopefully, stepping back. And that sort of depends on the efficiency of your crew. Some crews pick things up and work a lot better with each other than others. Some crews may need more hand-holding throughout the entirety of the course, which is no problem. We work with each of our students as they are, and we try to meet their needs as best we can. The hope is that in the last few days of course, the instructors can fully take a step back and let the students sort of control their own experience for the latter part of their course. And there's an element that we call final, which is where we're sort of releasing all of the roles and responsibilities over to students, and instructors are kind of just following behind, making sure that everyone is safe and okay.
Right. It's almost like they get to be the guide now and you get to walk along. That's so cool. What's it like for you to sort of witness the transformations that the students go through over the course of the experience that y'all are having together?
That is something that is so incredible to see.
Yeah.
When you can see the look on your students' faces when they arrive at the airport, and a lot of times there may be some anxiety, some uncertainty about what they've gotten themselves into, and compare that to maybe the last few days when you see your students like fully owning their course and taking initiative and responsibility and getting things done on their own, when students can navigate with each other without the help of instructors to get to our last few campsites. And just hearing some of the things that students will tell you about what they thought coming in versus how they feel when they leave. For me, it's so impactful and so rewarding to see. And obviously, every student who we work with is not the same. In some students, you can sort of see those impacts and those shifts right away. And other students, it may take them a few weeks or a few months or even a few years past their course before they start to think back and say, actually, we did this at Outward Bound and it helped me grow in this area. So it's fun when you can see it in real time, but there's also the sort of notion that if they don't see it today, like it'll come.
They're going to, yeah. Are there any like specific experiences that stand out in your mind?
I could generate some images of certain students who I've worked with. Actually, I could talk about a couple students from the Unity project. That was the very first course that I worked.
Okay, cool.
My very first year as an instructor. Yeah. And we had a couple of students in my crew who just really took the reins of the course and took the reins of their crew. And these two students were like leading the rest of their crew for the entirety of the course. And they just took to everything.
Yeah.
And later on that same summer, both of them ended up signing up to come back for like a 14 or 22 day course.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, we had them in our crew when they didn't know how to tie a knot to set up their tarp. And now they're taking this like almost month-long course. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. Does it remind you of yourself, like going from the city and like all of a sudden, like you said, my life became the outdoors?
It does. Like, my story is so similar to so many of these students where I did not grow up venturing in the outdoors. Yeah. I didn't hike. I didn't camp. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. And I look at where I am now and what I've done and what I'm capable of doing. And it's like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got to believe that really kind of plays into your experience, the way that you kind of see yourself in them as they come through and they grow.
For sure.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, one last question about the instructor side, because the thing that I just like intrigues me so much about Outward Bound is the idea of the solo that you all do, which is this. Well, actually, I'll let you explain it. Can you talk about what the solo is?
Solo is an element of a North Carolina Outward Bound course where we separate our entire crew. So each one of our students is placed in an individual spot where they cannot see their other crew mates. They should not be able to hear each other. And there's a strict no speaking rule during the duration of solo. So our students have to remain in the spots where we put them for however long. For shorter courses, it may last just a few hours, but for longer courses, it could last 2 or 3 days. And this is an element, of course, to allow students to just sit with themselves without any stimuli, without any distractions, and they can process whatever thoughts that come up. They can play around with things that they find around them in their natural environment. So we often have students who will build little mailboxes using sticks and branches that they find around them. And it's creative, or it's time for creativity. Students can exercise within the confines of their spot if they would like. And instructors will come around and we'll check on our students throughout the day, making sure they're doing okay and making sure all their needs are met. But it's essentially just time for the students to just be with themselves.
Yeah. And I think it's magic. And I've had a couple conversations with people on the show about like what people have done with their time on their solos. And let's clarify, no phones, right?
No phones. We confiscate phones at the beginning of course.
Cool. No phones. So it's basically like an extended period of time to just for people to be in themselves and to reflect and to just be with their own thoughts and spend their time just themselves, getting comfortable with themselves. And I love these conversations, and I just love this whole thing. But one question that I've always had is like, what are the instructors doing when the students are doing their solos? maybe that's secret sauce. Maybe I'm not allowed to go there, but it's just, I had to ask.
For the most part, we're still working. This is not a break for us by any means. Like I said, we spend time going around checking on our students, making sure they're doing okay. And when we're not doing that, we may be checking in with base to make sure that logistics pieces are going according to plan. Instructors will sit down and check with each other. As I mentioned earlier, we have touch bases constantly throughout the duration of course. And that's a lot of what's happening while students are on solo. So we'll be checking in with each other to see, hey, how are you doing? How am I doing? We're so many days into this course and we have X amount of days left. We're putting the final pieces together for the last leg of the course. If there are other logistics pieces that we're still trying to work out, and sometimes things change in the moment and we have to sort of just go with it. So we're always working, unfortunately.
But you're doing what you love. And that kind of brings me to my sort of last question really is, you followed your passion. You had these life experiences that led you to trails, which led you to the Appalachian Trail. You've kind of found the outdoors as something that you're passionate about. And now you're working in that space. That's pretty awesome to be able to have that path. And so I guess I'm curious for Outward Bound specifically, how has Outward Bound sort of changed you as a person and helped you become a better person?
One thing that I like to stress about the North Carolina Outward Bound School specifically is just the community. Mm-hmm. Compassion is one of our core pillars. And I will say from experience that every single person who comes to work for this school embodies what it means to be compassionate. And it's all the time for us. And I appreciate that so much. And I'm someone who I've lived in different places. I've moved around. So it can be sort of difficult to like keep in touch with friends and family members when I move around or have moved around so much. But when I came to North Carolina, the North Carolina Outward Bound School was a community that opened its arms to me. And it's the reason why I'm still here. And I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah, the community means so much to me. This organization means so much to me. The students that we work with mean so much to me, and the impact that we have on them. I can't think of anything else that I would rather be doing right now.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a great organization full of amazing people that I've gotten to know firsthand as well. And, they're lucky to have you, and it's a great match. So, and you've progressed. You started as a guide and as an instructor, and now you are advancement coordinator. Tell us what you do at Outward Bound now.
Yes, as advancement coordinator, my role is sort of split in half. So half of that is development, which is sort of helping with fundraising and helping to ensure that the school moves in the direction that we want to move to in the next 5+ years. And the other half of that is marketing. I have marketing experience and prior roles, prior careers and industries. So I'm helping out with our outreach efforts, our marketing efforts, putting together content. And I'm only maybe 3 or 4 months into my role now. So I'm excited about all the things that we have planned coming up in future years.
So are you bringing fashion back into the outdoor space?
I'm always wearing a little something.
I love it. It's so awesome. I have to ask, because the role that you're in now, do you get much time outdoors?
Not as much as being a field instructor, but I guess what I kind of appreciate now is that when I go explore, it's nice that I only really have to worry about my own safety, and it's nice to just go out and be able to do what I want.
It's true. Yeah.
Even though there is a part of me that misses being in the field and working more directly with our students, maybe one day there might be a way that I can sneak off and go work another course, but we'll have to see about that at a later date. But
are there any big adventures looming in your mind that you'd like to be able to do at some point?
Honestly, at this period in my life, I'm very much invested in the smaller adventures. So I love a good, maybe extended weekend backpacking trip of 3 or 4 days, doing a nice 30 miles or so.
Yeah.
I feel like I did the long, hard, grueling AT through hike, and now I just want to have a more comfortable, relaxed time.
I love
outdoors.
That's fantastic. Justin, if people want to find out more about you or the North Carolina Outward Bound School, what's the best way for them to do that?
I will plug the Outward Bound School first. You can find anything related to North Carolina Outward Bound School at our website, just www.ncobs.org. We are also on social media. On Instagram, I think it's Outward Bound NC, or it's NC Outward Bound, one of those. Then you can also find North Carolina Outward Bound School on YouTube, where I'm working with our advancement and marketing teams to try to push out more content. So be on the lookout for that. And also one more plug, I am sort of initiating an alumni engagement program so that we can keep in touch with our alumni well beyond when their Outward Bound course ends. So we have some special events for former students and former staff coming up. I'm going to be hosting an alumni virtual social hour for the holidays. So just an hour of folks getting together and talking about our memories and experiences.
Perfect.
If anyone's interested in keeping up with me personally, I'm on Instagram at trailhead Justin, all one word, spelled the way that it sounds.
Love it. And we'll put those links into the show notes as well. Okay. Justin, fashion industry in New York City, to the trail, to the AT, to leading students on amazing outward bound trips in the mountains and the Everglades, all over the place. You've lived this epic life, and there's still lots more to come, but At some point, Hollywood is going to pick up on your story. And when they do, they're going to want to make a movie about your life. And when they do, I want to know who the Hollywood personality is that's going to play you in your movie.
I think the last movie that I saw was Sinners, and the lead actor in that is Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan. Okay.
Yeah, he's a good actor. And I don't necessarily know if we capture each other's essences, but I'm just going to say him.
I love it.
He's the only person I can think of.
That's fair. What's your movie going to be called?
We can call it New Shoes, which was my trail name, or maybe the Journey of New Shoes or something along those lines.
I'm sorry. We can't stop there. We got to hear the story. How'd you get your trail name New Shoes?
I met these through hikers. And this was in North Carolina, right around the Smoky Mountains. And these two women, they loved thinking of trail names to give to people. So they wanted to give me one. So they were asking me about my life and my experience. And I was telling them that, oh yeah, I used to live in New York City. I worked in the fashion industry. And they went, oh, so you gave up your fashion shoes for a pair of hiking shoes? We're going to call you New Shoes. And I was like, okay, I'll take it.
I love it. That's hysterical. That's a great trail name. Well, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today, Justin. And for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. Hope Justin's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Justin, thank you so much for being here.
Scott, thank you. It's been a pleasure.